I'm going to present on a subject of project management, called PMA0S2. My name is Michael Molondo, and we're going to cover the following aspects or the following subjects within this course. We're going to look at the introduction of project management. I'm going to give you a small introduction on what project management is all about. We're going to look at the history of project management. We're going to look at different stages you follow to develop a project on project development. We're going to look at tools and techniques that you can use for project management, like, for an example, the Gantt chart. And how do you manage or use Gantt chart when it comes to managing projects. We're going to look at another tool or technique, which is work breakdown structures. We're also going to look at the critical path method as a tool in project management. And then, of course, the project team. Why is a project team very important when it comes to project and project management? And then risk management it's a dimension, or it's an area which is very much more important when it comes to projects and project management. And then, of course, we're going to end up with monitoring and evaluation. Now, project management, when we look at the definition, there are so many definitions that you can use, but this is just a framework that you can use, just to explain in a nutshell what project is all about. Any project it's a series of activities, and these activities are actually designed to achieve a certain objective. And the reason why these activities want to achieve an objective is they want to have a certain outcome. So these activities are actually implemented to have an outcome. And to have those outcomes, you need money. And these outcomes are set around a set of budget. And then it's then implemented over time scale or also time period. A project is then also designed, of course, to look at a set of time frame, as I say, the budget. And a project normally has a very clear a beginning and an end, so which is very well defined. So the end and the beginning is well defined with specific objective, and those objective needs to be SMART, which means it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, achievable, it needs to be realistic, and of course it needs to be time bound. So project management then, it enables any organization or any entity to save time and money. And it's very important that when you are going to implement a set of activities, you want to make sure that you reduce the risk and possible failures. And that's where project management it's very important. And it is based on results. So you want, it's actually a result-based management system. You want to make sure that you are having results in your activities. And many businesses, engineering companies, entities, organization is using project management. Even in a household, you're also having project management. How do you manage the food in the house? How do you manage how you run the house? So that's all project management. So it's quite very important. So when we look at the project, whether it's done by organization or a company, it's actually a temporary endeavor. It's a temporary undertaking that is taken or that's done by any entity. And a project is always having a life cycle or a lifespan. A project is not lifelong, it's having its limitation. And as I said earlier, it's having a start and it's having an end. So what does a project attribute? What are the attributes or the characteristic of any project? Of course, a project is very unique. It's so unique that it's having a unique purpose, and as I say, it's temporary. It requires resources, and then of course it needs to make sure that it has a sponsor, and where funding is also very important. So just to go to the history of project management already started in the early 50s, and the reason why it was so important is because it looked at different aspects of planning and control. And Henry Gant is one of the fathers of project management. And by the 1950s, when most projects became capital projects, and the project management tool of Henry Gant was then adopted, and it escalated. And by the 1969, the whole project management concept was then formalized, and during this 1969 the Project Management Institute was then formed and established, and this institute was then established to focus mostly at industries, or at project management industries, and those organizations and entity and business that are responsible and involved in project management. So by the 1980s and 81, the body of project management knowledge was then established, which then did not just look at the industry, but also look at the quality assurance of the industry. And this is where this body, PMBK, or Project Management Body of Knowledge, was then established. And they actually look at the standards. When you are dealing with projects, there are certain criteria and standards which you have to have in order for you to qualify. And this is where the aspect of quality assurance came in as early as in the 1980s. And this is, as you can see, how the history of project management actually. Now, we can actually go back earlier than the 1950s and even the 40s, that in the early days, when we look at the Egyptian, the pyramids, just building the pyramids, when you go to Egypt, it's one of the oldest, it's the wonders of the world. Even today, people are wondering where did the Egyptians got during the turn of the century, where did they get the technology to build the pyramids? Especially when you go to China, the Great Wall of China, which was built in the 12th century, 13th century, for example, where did they get the technology? So the whole principle of project management is as much as old as humans. So it can go millions of years, thousands of years way back, that project management, or the principle of project management, was then built. And a very good, we can look at contemporary or modern projects that were done, like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, in France, the Empire State Building in New York, the United States of America. Those are all projects, and they needed the principles, or they had to apply the principle of project management. So as you can see from history, project management really grew from the very early stage or early years of man up to now, where we are now. So it's very important to know that project management is part of our humans, it's part of human, and we need it, and we need to apply it. So there are different stages that you can apply, or that any project goes through. And so these are just guidelines that you can follow, and it's just examples they give us. Within each stage, depends on your project, it also depends on the organization, but these are the basic stage that you can follow in developing. The first stage is the initiation stage, is where you want to know, you have a concept, or this is the conceptual stage, where you initiate a project, or you want to do something, or you say, and conceptual stage means you want to build, for example, building a hotel. Let's take hotel industry. So first stage is you have the concept, and then once you have the concept, then the second stage is you start to plan. That's where you draw your lines. That's where you start to design how the hotel needs to look like, whether it's a 20-story or 20 floor of hotel, is it 100 rooms, how many guests? So this is the planning and the designing stage. Then the third stage is then the actual production, where you start to build the hotel, where you execute your plan or your concept. And once you have execute and you produce the project, then it's very important. Then you have to look at the completion of the project, because it's very important, as I said, that the project is having a beginning and it's having an end. And once you have completed your project, this is where quality assurance come in. You have to look whether you have implemented the project, whether it's a building project, whether it's a construction project, whether it's a project of community-based project. So once you reach the completion stage, it's very important that you have to look that you have met the criteria. And how do you make sure that you have completed your project? The next and the last stage is monitoring. And monitoring actually means it's once the project is ongoing, you're going to monitor and look at the progress of the project. And then this is also a very good way then to have certain controlling systems or mechanism in place to make sure that you reduce the risk when it comes to the project itself, whether it's a building project. Now, the project is having a life cycle, and there are different, it's going through a life cycle. As I say, it starts somewhere and it needs to end somewhere. So this is just a basic life cycle that you can follow, and it's just an example. The first cycle that a project goes through is feasibility, and this is normally where you first do your feasibility study. You are looking at this project that I'm going to embark on, is it feasible? Is it going to work? Is it workable? Will it make a difference? Can I apply it? So is it practical enough? Will it work? Will it be possible? That's the thing. Then once you've done a feasibility study and you know that this project is feasible, then you have to plan. You have a plan. This is how you are going to build, or this is how you're going to implement the project. And then after you have a plan, then you need to have a schedule. When are you going to implement the project? How are you going to implement the project? And who is going to implement the project? So it's very important to have a plan with a clear schedule, which we call the scheduling phase. The next cycle or phase of the project is then the implementation. So you implement the project or the project itself. And once you implement the project, you have to make sure that you monitor and you evaluate. And as I say, you monitor during the implementation, and evaluation is at the end of the cycle to evaluate whether you met the criteria or whether you need to start all over. And once the project is completed, then it's what we call the closing down and the handing over. When you build a building structure, the first thing is you do environmental feasibility study. After that, you have a plan, then where you say, when do you want to build this building structure, whether it's a house. Then you build, during the implementation, you build the house. Once you finish the house, of course, before finishing the house, you have to make sure that the inspector comes in, the building inspector, look whether the house has been built according to the architectural plan. And once it is finished, everyone is happy, quality assurance approve the building the house, then of course it's the handing over or the closing down of the project, and you're handing over to the owner. So when you have a project, there are different tools and techniques that you can use. And the reason why do you need this tool or these techniques, it actually only helps the project or the team that's going to implement this project. So once you have this tool will make the role or the work of the project team very, very smoothly and then effective, and it will help them. So there are certain things that you have to look. There are certain tools that you can use. There is a project charter, the work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart that you can use, and then also, of course, the critical path technique, and then also the value management tool that you can also use. Now, one of them, I'm going to only have 3 examples. One of them is, as a tool, is the Gantt chart. And now, this is an example of how a Gantt chart looks like. It tells you exactly what you want to do, when you want to do it, and some of the Gantt chart also say who's going to do it. So it gives you a very good indication, and at the end of the day is you can use this Gantt chart, you can put it on the walls, everyone will read it, it will be transparent, and it will also help you to plan accordingly and to make sure that you implement the activity. Now so this is how a Gantt chart look, and it's having a list of tasks that needs to be done. It's having a calendar from January to December with specific activities that you have to do. And as I say, this chart was it was actually designed by Jeffrey Gantt himself, and it was implemented as early as 1917. But during the 1917, when they first started, they draw it with hand. But nowadays, you can have it on software. You can actually have a software. The other tool that you can use in project management is the work breakdown structure. And the work breakdown structure, it's actually looking at the deliverables of a project. It's actually a list of things that you have to do. It's like a checklist that you can use, and it also looking at the project itself, and then of course it's how accurately did you estimate your activities, and will you be able then to implement it. So it's actually how you break down your activities or what you want to do, and I'm going to explain as we go. Give an example. Let me give an example. Say if you want to assemble a bicycle, and you want to make sure that you are going to have the bicycle itself. You will see for a work breakdown you have 3 levels. The first level is the 100%. So each level is having 100%. You want to have the bicycle itself. Now the second level, to have a bicycle, you have to have different components. You need to have the frame set of the bicycle, the cranks, the wheel, the braking, the shifting, and so on and so on. So and then the next level is then you're going to break down who is going to build the frame set. What do you need? What does a frame set consist of? You need to have a frame itself, a handlebar, a fork, a seat. The second set is the crank set. What do you need? The wheels. You've got a front wheel and a rear wheel. So what this tool actually does, it actually breaks down the activity into smaller activities. So you have the major activity into minor activity, or you have the main activity and you break down that each main activity into smaller activity. And this is actually a tool that you can use in order for you then to build. For an example, if you have one of the component is you have the foundation. What does the foundation of the house consist? It's cement, water, concrete, all of these things. So this tool actually help you then to break down the activity. Critical path method is also another tool, a method that you can use in project management, which was then designed in 1957 by DuPont as a method. And what it actually look at, it looks at the activity and it puts the activity in different nodes. So activity 1 starts, say if you have 5 activities, do you go from activity 1 straight to activity 2, 3, 4, and 5, or do you go from activity 1 to activity 3? And from activity 3, do you go to activity 4 and back to 1? So this is what they call a pathway that you can create for you to complete your project. So you can start from 1 to 5, or you can start from 1 and skip 2 and then go straight to 3. So this is a tool which DuPont has developed, which can be very helpful in some instances. But at the end is you always start somewhere, and you always have an end, and of course you've got a beginning. So there are certain steps that you have to follow if you use, of course, the critical path method. You have to make sure that you have individual activities, and you have to specify those activities. Those activities needs to be very specific. And once you have activities, then the activities must have a sequence. It must be chronologically. It must follow a sequence. So it needs to be consistent as much as possible. Then the third step, once you know the sequence of the activity, you need to draw then a diagram, which is very helpful for most organizations. And once you've got the diagram, then you have to have an estimate. And this is where you bring the cost and the budget of the activity, and then it also need to be then scheduled and say, when are you going to finish the specific activity and how much will it cost. And then, of course, which is very important, is as the project is progressing, it's very important then to update your diagram from time to time as the project is going. In the project, as I say, it's very important to have a team, and a project team, it's very important. It will help the project to be planned, to be implemented. Project team needs to have qualified and experienced people, preferably not at least 10 plus minus people, and a project always need to have a manager or a team leader. And it's very important to make sure the team in this project, they have to be committed, they have to stick to the specific plan, they have to stick to the plan, to the schedule of the project, and they have to make sure. And this project team, it's people that are bringing entities that are there on a temporary basis, but at the end, they are achieving the goal. In project management, it's very important to consider risk. Risks are always there. You have to plan, you have to make sure that all possible risks are covered, and you need to have a contingency plan. When it comes to risk, you have to look at a condition that might occur or an event that might occur, whether it's positive or negative. And when you are having those unexpected events that might occur and that might affect the project, you have to make sure that you've got a risk plan in place and a risk management plan in place, of course, which will help you to prepare for uncertainty. So risk management will, of course, affect all the aspects of your project, and you have to make sure that when risks occur, how are you going to use this risk as opportunities? And when the unforeseen happen, for example, how are you going to make sure that you are going to manage this risk, and you will have, of course, a plan B. And most organizations or most companies, they do not consider the element of risk management. And risk management also means that you have to quantify those contingency plans into money. And this is where you have to take out an additional insurance just to cover, for example, if an unforeseen circumstance or risk appear. So risk management needs to be conducted from the beginning and the start of the project to make sure that when you implement the project, you will fulfill or you will end that project as much as possible. Then, of course, when it comes to project management, you have to monitor the project, and as you implement the project, or you are conducting the project within that space of time, you have to make sure that your performance is according to the design of the project, and that you are functioning according. And this will help you. As you monitor the activities or the implementation of the project, it will then also help you to improve as the project is then ongoing. And then, of course, evaluation is also very important. This will ensure that the outcome of the project is ensured, and it will then also help when it comes to cost effectiveness, and then to make sure that once you have implemented the project and you've experienced challenges, what are the lessons that you have can learn? And this is where evaluation comes in. So thank you very much for listening to me. I will encourage you to refer to your study study manual and then to get more information as possible. So I hope that you will prepare for your assignment and for your exams.